Yo, what is good, my anime faithful? What is good, yo? So, this show came out at a really weird time. It was supposed to come out some time ago, and it came out on a different day entirely. Not to mention, it's about to come back out soon. But the compulsive Gumbala, she is so wild. I love the character that we get to watch, but at the same time, man, it feels like they always push her narrative so far. And I'm talking about the main girl. Just, I feel like every time I see her, she's in a situation where she could either be the most diabolical person or doesn't, um, she doesn't know how to not look like the diabolical person. So by default, everybody takes her as the evil one in the room. So I don't know what to think about this week's episode when it comes down to, do I believe she's the one that did everything, or do I believe she's innocent? And yeah, that's the true nature of the beast. um, we pretty much get this ridiculously hilarious moment of thinking we know exactly what type of character we're dealing with, and then seeing we don't know anything about her seemingly at all. And because of that, when we do see the true side of her, we get this very, very dark side. And supposedly, this game we're playing is you're supposed to ante up your taxes, and it's kind of like Mafia, like a weird, different way of playing Mafia, where after the day ends of you depositing whatever you're supposed to deposit to equal out to a certain amount, you're supposed to then talk it out and see if it comes up lower than it was supposed to be. You're supposed to talk it out and try to figure out who's the one that might have done it. And of course, when that happens the first round, they're like, okay, let's figure out who did this. And they're like, all right. And and just by talking about it and just by getting into this conversation, it pretty much puts them all um, in a spot where they can't even imagine uh, beating, uh, the main girl, or imagine even who the traitor could be. So they pretty much allow the first person who come up with a good idea to step up, which is of course our girl, and she wants to put out some bait. She wants to put out some delicious bait, and she does. So, with the bait being laid out, we quickly see just why she wanted to throw out this bait, and for good reason. So, everybody who put their certain coins in wrote their number on the paper, and then they showed the paper to each other to show whatever number they get from the coins in the second round should add up to whatever they wrote on the paper, which it should have added up to 21, but it really added up to 13. And so another huge debate goes on, and people are pointing the finger, but at the end of the day, there's no true way of finding out who's doing this because everybody's pointing the finger at each other. And not only are they pointing their fingers, they're definitely using as much backup, weird head canon things they can. They're like, oh, well, you guys came in together, so you're obviously in cahoots. Like, well, you and your boy over there had a whole entire session against this girl and lost, so why wouldn't it be you two working together? And of course, the man who we see in the earlier parts of the episode that has lost everything. He's so lost that the man lost even his spirit to fight. He's got white hair, man. He's seen some rough times, and because of this, he seemed like the perfect candidate, to just throw a wrench in this whole game, but he could be throwing a wrench or he could not be, and I think Not only does the title kind of back up his claim, but also just her character in general is like this. So to see her making everybody fight over something she's doing would be the most entertaining thing she could do, I feel like, you know? So I think that's one thing she's doing, is trying to entertain herself while just absolutely laughing in the face of everybody who thinks that they're even close to figuring out who's behind it, when really she's the only one that's just not putting in coins. And I didn't even think about that being the reason why she's doing it. Like, you know, that would be the most entertaining to her. I didn't even think of that until I was like, wait, every time they, you know, do their card thing or they do their deposit, the person who was really sketchy to me was the girl who was always going to be in the room with the coins after all is said and done. But these girls in like these puppy uniforms are relatively fair, and I think that's because the little girl who seemingly rocks the main one, like rocks the main outfit, or she's just like the boss of them, maybe, I don't even know. Um, she likes fair games, you know, so it would only make sense to me that they kind of go off of her persona. They go off of what she believes in, and that's the only thing these girls have shown us so far. But I mean, there could be an instance where we see one of them aren't like all of them. So I'm not holding it against this girl not being the one that is doing all of this, just to be safe, because I don't trust half of this school. Why am I gonna trust a referee all of a sudden, you know? So that's just my train of thought. I might be way off, but I might be onto something. You never know really with these types of shows nowadays, because they like to pull the rugs underneath you every time they can. So I would be not surprised at all to see that be the outcome. But overall, let me know what you guys are thinking about this show. I definitely didn't expect it to have so much character as it did, and this week alone it had a lot of character, which was very fun, because even hearing the guy who lost pretty much his whole entire life to the main character, in the sense of his money. He's like 10 billion in the hole, or 10 mil, or I think it was 10 billion. And so he doesn't even own his own life until he pays all that off. And she pretty much is like, hey, or no, yeah, she's like, hey, remember me? Or, you know, like, I love when we and you gambled. You really put it all on the line. You know, like, you're the ultimate gambler, because you were trying to kill me off, and instead of killing me, you died. Um, and he just wanted to know, do you feel any remorse? Do you feel, you know, any type of pain or sorrow for ruining people's lives? And she's like, I do feel sorrow because I can't feel remorse. Dude, I read that and I was just like, oh my god, she is cold-blooded, bro. My lord. And of course, one of the girls who I have been saying is probably maybe gonna be the secret villain or secret boss or something weird, is the girl who pretty much has an outrage this week, and, you know, calls her out on that. Like, you dare even toy with the fate of people and think it's a joke and this and that. And to see her go from these blanked out eyes that are looking like they're just shadowed over to a very bright yellow Luisant, like it was, her eyes were so pretty but evil. It was like the most evilest, prettiest eyes. They were hiding behind some dark shadows, and that's another thing this show does so well, is these eyes. I talk about them every review, but when it's a guy, there's not many guy gamblers in this show, but when they have a guy, the man looks literally like Satan. He's just holding his whole face, covering one eye, and then his only other eye that you can see is just completely bloodshot. Like this man has been smoking 18 blunts and didn't share, okay? But for for this, I'll end it there. We are in a situation where our main girl is probably the main crook of it all, because it just would be that much more entertaining to her. So we'll see if that is the case. I am not 100% sure yet, but with that, everybody, I hope you have an amazing day, night, evening, whatever the case it is for you, and I will talk to you in the next one. All right, later, everybody.